I was cautiously optimistic when Resurrection F was announced as a revival of Frieza, an iconic villain who, at that point, had been brought back once canonically. When I say canonically, I'm excluding his return in the Super 17 arc of GT, as that is another continuity. Resurrection F wasn't my favorite film, but I thought it was alright and had no qualms with the concept of Frieza coming back so much as the execution. Without turning this into a review of that film, I thought the inclusion of Beerus and Whis hurt Frieza's credibility because he was literally fighting next to two characters that are both much stronger than him and nominally on the side of the protagonist. Regardless, it was nice seeing him again after 20 years, and I thought his new transformation, while being a palette swap just like the new Super Saiyan forms, was pleasant looking. During the Future Trunks saga, there is an episode where Goku and Krillin meet hallucinations of past antagonists, Frieza included. There were some fans that expressed annoyance by this because Frieza was appearing again, but many, like myself, enjoyed this cameo because it was a callback to past eras of the franchise, and it wouldn't have made sense to not include him there since he was traumatic to Krillin via impaling him and causing his second death. His presence served the purpose. The Tournament of Power is, in my opinion, the best arc of Super, but I reacted very negatively to Frieza being included in the Universe 7 roster, mostly due to the fact that he was replacing Boo, who was one of my favorite characters and someone that Super largely avoided using. I was very satisfied with Frieza's role in that arc and would go on to defend his inclusion against people who dislike the idea of recurring villains, as my stance was that a villain should be allowed to come back after their defeat if something new can be done with them. Frieza served a unique and important role in the story as the evil team member of Universe 7 that could turn on other members of his universe with the drop of a hat. I will defend Frieza's role in the Tournament of Power as his best since the Frieza saga for its evolution and respect of the character. When I later found out that Frieza was in the Broly movie, I was cautious and would later be very annoyed, and I'll explain why. In the original 13 Dragon Ball Z films, there was an unwritten rule that main villains were not allowed to appear. This is why Vegeta is not present until the 6th movie, the second Cooler film, because Toei still considered him an antagonist. The films served as a way to show Goku, Gohan, Krillin, Piccolo, Vegeta, and sometimes other characters fighting alternate threats that paralleled the present villains of the main story. This is why Cell is in none of them, this is why Boo is in none of them, and this is why Frieza, outside of flashbacks, is only in one of them. That movie being Fusion Reborn, where he has less than 5 lines but still serves the purpose of showing how powerful Gohan has become. If Frieza only appeared in the flashback sequence of the Broly movie, I wouldn't have a single complaint. But instead they use him as the catalyst to get Broly around Goku and Vegeta as part of his new revenge scheme. I want to be clear. Frieza was used in a way that mattered to the plot of that film, and I am in no way suggesting that it is not to the credit of the writers, who I'm usually critical of, that he was used in a way that furthered the plot. He also provides some humor and benefits the plot again when he kills Paragus to anger Broly into his transformation. This is not a critique of Frieza's role in the film, but more so a protest against his inclusion. The Dragon Ball Super Broly film marked the 4th reappearance of Frieza since the Frieza saga ended with his seeming defeat. We had his return at the start of the Cell saga. We had his return in Resurrection F. We had his return in the Tournament of Power, and then the Broly film. But it gets worse than that. Between the manga of Dragon Ball Super and the anime, Frieza has an appearance as a hallucination in the first chapter of Super and appears in single panels during both the Universe 6 and currently ongoing Galactic Patrol Prisoner arcs. This means that out of the current 6 arcs of Super and the Broly movie, Frieza has physically appeared in all 7 of them. This is very problematic because basic protagonists like Gohan and Krillin found themselves excluded from the Broly movie outside of a flashback in Krillin's case, while Frieza, an antagonist, is not only in the film but at the center of its plot. Understand why I mentioned those two characters. Gohan and Krillin both appear in 14 of the 15 Dragon Ball Z films, with Gohan only being absent from Bio Broly and Krillin being absent from Fusion Reborn, making them the characters who appear in the most films besides Goku. Their exclusion and Frieza's inclusion signifies a shift in focus that I hate, which is this push for characters that are not either Goku, Vegeta, or the villain to get shoved to the back burner. When a villain starts appearing in more arcs or films than the central protagonist, that's a problem. If Frieza had only been in Resurrection F and the Tournament of Power, I would have accepted his role in Super as a return that was initially half-baked, but that eventually led to one of the best interactions between a villain and the cast in the entire franchise. But he's made an appearance in every arc and had a bigger role in Super as a whole than pretty much any character besides Goku, Vegeta, Beerus, and maybe Whis, which is insane. And he was not needed for the Broly film, despite what some may assert. If they wanted someone to get Broly to Goku and Vegeta, all they had to do was have Goku and Vegeta come to Planet Vampa under Beerus' training regiment and have Broly sense the new strong power levels. If they wanted some evil person to guide Broly into attacking the Saiyans, they could have brought back Babidi or King Piccolo, who both could have been written to be strong enough to kill Paragus. We haven't seen either of those characters in 20 years, so it would have been nice to see one of them again while they serve a role that affects the plot. This also would have been a breather from Frieza, and would have made them using him in a second Super film more welcome due to the breather we had received from him. I want to clarify that none of this is specifically against Frieza returning so many times. I would have the same problem if it was anyone else. If they made Cell come back in Resurrection C, then come back 2 arcs later as a main character, then come back in the movie after that arc, I would be just as annoyed, because Dragon Ball has a wide variety of antagonists that, if written correctly and given enough breathing room between appearances, can be just as compelling. It doesn't appear things are going to get any better since he's still alive and that we're headed toward another arc centered around Frieza trying to get revenge that probably is just going to end with him getting killed for the 3rd time. The only way they could make that arc interesting is if they give him some unique technique that actually does something we haven't seen before, and have a character that is not Goku, ideally Vegeta or Gohan, finally defeat him. As I said earlier, I don't mind seeing villains reappear continuously, but I do have a problem when the same villain finds his way into every part of the story, whether by being mentioned or appearing. Cell, for example, was mentioned multiple times during the Boo and Future Trunks sagas, but outside of that, he's only seen twice in Super as a hallucination, which are fleeting cameos that don't hold a candle to the large and continuously expanding role that Frieza is having on Super. It almost feels like the writers forget that there are other villains besides Frieza who could be brought back and have more done with. This is especially troubling due to the vast number of colorful and memorable antagonists in the franchise, such as the Ginyu Force, Dabura, and Janemba, who have found their appearances limited to 1 arc or film, while Frieza shows up over and over again. I won't deny Frieza is the most iconic Dragon Ball villain, but it's hard for others to compete when they get 1 arc to Frieza's several.